Guys, how's it going? Welcome to my video. All right, so we're gonna do this video on issues with the alternator, particularly with a malfunctioning alternator, and this is pretty much common to all vehicles except for the electric ones that don't have alternators. But outside of that, this is pretty much common to any engine vehicle, combustible engine vehicle. All right, so basically most of the time, if you guys have an alternator issue, it's gonna occur when you're on the road. Like the engine has to be on, probably not on the road, but if you're idling and your car dies out on you, chances are, or if it dies out on you and you're not able to start it, or you have enough power to have lights on the dash but nothing else works, that's an alternate issue. But for the most part, if you see somebody stuck on the side of the road, or even on the road itself, on the street, chances are, like 90% chances are, that it's the alternator that died out on them. All right, so basically the test for that is if it dies out on you and you try to start it. A lot of people actually who don't know anything about cars or how the alternator works or how the power system works will try to charge up the battery. All right, I've seen this so many times on the road where people have the car front end to front end on a busy street, on the highway, or whatever, because they don't know anything about the charging system. They'll try to jump the car, all right? But they're thinking if they jump the car that, you know, it'll run and it's probably a battery issue and they need to get a battery, etc., etc. And I've seen this over and over and over and over again. All right, so if you're stuck on the street, your car was driving fine and it just dies out, all right, what happens, the whole entire process of the whole electrical system is this: your alternator either A, stop charging your battery, or B, put out such a low voltage to charge the battery, because your alternator is connected to your car. I mean, it's connected by the serpentine belt, and that serpentine belt is connected to the motor. The motor runs the alternator, and thereby giving it the ability to generate electricity to the battery to charge up the battery. However, if your alternator is malfunctioning and it's not charging up the battery, or it's only putting out a low amount of voltage to charge up the battery, what happens is your truck, your vehicle is pretty much just going to be running on the battery after a certain point. And when your car starts dying out and just absolutely stops working, and you're not able to turn it back on after it dies out on the road, in that case, it's your alternator that's dead. Your alternator is dead. Your alternator is not working, and your battery is completely drained. So you were actually driving on your battery for a good amount of period of time, not a good amount of period of time, maybe like a couple miles, and then it dies out. That was your battery dying out. That's why you're not able to start your car, because your battery is dead, because the alternator wasn't charging your battery. Since your alternator wasn't charging your battery, your car was running, all the electronics in the car was running off the battery itself until the battery was 100% drained. All right, now in that case, jumping your car will get it to turn on again. However, it's not going to stay on. All right, it's not going to stay on, because once you take the cables off, like you put cables on, all right, on a 100% drained battery, you don't want to start right away. You're going to wait a minute or two for the battery to get enough charge so you could start your vehicle. You're gonna be able to start your vehicle, but once you take the cables off, it's just gonna die out, or it's gonna die out on you maybe 10, 20, 30 seconds into it. You know, so there's no point in trying to charge up the battery in that case. What you could do, if you are stuck in a really bad situation and you don't have the money to get a tow truck to tow your car, what you could do is you could actually go and get a brand new battery that's fully charged, pop it in, and you will be able to drive your car for maybe a good 10, 20 miles to get wherever you need to get to. You guys can't do that. All right. But as far as you know, as far as these cars that I see on the freeways, on the roads, where they're front end to front end trying to charge, you're gonna have to charge it for an hour and a half to get enough of a battery, enough of a battery life to actually drive it for 10, 20 miles or however it is. But they're not trying to do that. That's not what they're trying to do. When I see them on the streets with the cars front end to front end trying to jump the car, as all the cars pass by, it's a fruitless effort, because they think that if they charge up, if they put it on the battery for maybe 5 minutes, that, you know, miraculously it's just going to keep on working until, but they don't know how the whole electrical system works. All right, they don't know how the electrical system works, and that's faulty thinking. But a lot of people do that, because you see that all the time. I see that all the time. All right, so if you have this situation where your car just suddenly dies and power, you're not getting enough power to crank, obviously in that situation you're gonna get a no crank, no start. There's not even enough power when it dies like that to get even a slow crank for the most part. All right, so that's one of the instances where you will know that it's the alternator that's the issue. All right, and the test for that is for the most part, all right, the alternator will die on you while the car is running for the most part. There is a rare chance that that you could conceivably drive your vehicle with a failing alternator or a dead alternator that's not charging the battery, and you get all the way to wherever you need to get to on the battery itself, and the battery just has enough of a charge to get you to where you parked it, and then you come back and then try to start it, and then it's the alternator that's the issue. But like I said, the test for that is with your car dead and not being able to start, put the case, you know, have somebody jump your car, or have a power pack to jump your car. All right, leave it on there for maybe a minute or two, turn it on. If it runs, and then once you take the cables off, because it's running off the power pack, of it's running off the jumper from the other car, once you take the cables off, it dies out on you. That's the test that you know that it is the alternator that's causing that issue. All right, so that's one of the things where you know that it's the alternator. I've also come across cases where alternator issues will if an alternator is putting out a charge that's low enough to keep your car going, but they'll put up enough of a charge to keep your car going, but it'll be not enough of a charge to keep it going if you start turning other things on. Like if you turn on your blower motor fan, if you start turning on your radio, if it's driving fine. I've come across somebody who actually had put in a remanufactured alternator and started having these issues immediately, where they were able to turn the car on, and, you know, at certain points he'll start losing power if he turns on the radio, etc., etc. In those instances, it could be an alternator that's not putting out enough of a charge, or it's putting out enough of a charge to keep the car running or to charge up the battery at a minimum level. But you know, the next day over, you might have to jump it, and then it'll run. It'll be good for a certain amount of time, and then you start having battery issues because the battery will never be fully charged, because the alternator is probably putting out like 75% power to the battery. So the battery, it's going to damage your battery too, because the battery is going to be like semi-charged up, like 75% charged up all the time, and you don't want that to happen. Now, the test for that is you're going to want to get a voltmeter, or you want to get a battery meter. All right, a battery meter or alternator meter. They sell these at Harbor Freight. They sell these at Walmart. Just get the meter, plug it in, and turn your car on. It'll show you, particularly the good ones, it'll show you you know, what the percentage is that the alternator is putting out, right? It'll show you what the percentage is that the alternator is putting out. They're pretty cheap. They're like $7, and a lot of times you can plug it into your 12 volt, because that 12 volt socket is connected to the battery. The battery is connected to the alternator. Normally, if the alternator is working correctly and you turn on, it's going to be all the way up to either good or excellent. It's gonna, you know, there's a meter. It's gonna be good or excellent. But if you turn it on and it's poor, turn your car on, or it's poor, or it's just it's showing its average, you know that there is a problem with the charging system with the alternator. All right, so that's the second thing. The third thing is the third issue of the alternator. There have been issues where I've come across where I've put in alternators and the alternator is overcharging the battery, which a lot of times will cause the battery to get hot enough where it'll start where the battery will start I would say boiling up. It's gonna burn out the battery in that case. I mean, it's rare to find an alternator that overcharges. It's rare to find an alternator that overcharges, but that does occur. And the only way you would know that is if you actually connect a voltmeter to the battery or to the alternator with the car running. And if with the car running on a good alternator, it should produce about 14 point, like I've heard, like 13.7 to 14.2, 14.3, 14.5. If you get an alternator that cranks out like 15 volts or whatever, there's gonna be an issue. That's pretty much telling you that there is an issue with the alternator itself. So just to go over how you can figure out, what the issue is, or how you can actually figure out what, the issue with your car because of a malfunctioning alternator. For the most part, it's going to die out on you while the engine is running. All right, it's going to die out on you when the engine is running, and you can try to turn it on, but it's not going to crank because there's not enough power in the battery to crank it. And the test for that is you want to try to jump it. If it starts up, and then once you take the cables off, it just dies out, you know for an absolute fact that it's the alternator that's the issue without actually having to do any other test um, with that, for the most part. Anyway, if you guys have any, if you guys have your own experiences as far as alternator issues, definitely leave a comment in a comment section. It'll help other people out. Please subscribe. Please give me a thumbs up, and all that good stuff. All right, guys, take care.